Something feels off right now, right? People are working harder, but somehow falling further behind. Groceries are up, housing feels out of reach, and a lot of folks are asking the same question. Is anyone actually paying attention to what's going on right now that we're dealing with? So tonight, we are not doing the surface level questions. We're getting to the nitty gritty. And we've got Pat Wilver, who's running for Congress right here in our district. And we're asking questions that actually matter. What's the plan? What changes? And how does it affect you? Trying to live, buy, and build something right now. So let's get into it.
Welcome back to this episode of the Market Sip. My name is Patrick Donovan from eXp Realty, part of the Johnson Group. And I'm here with Brandon Giebler from Next Move Real Estate. And I want to say thank you guys so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate it. And Brandon, I was wondering that, if someone was like, I'm thinking about buying a home, what should I do? Like, what is the first step they should take, Brandon, you think?
You got to go scan them codes.
Scan the codes, hit them QR codes. Give us a call. Let us know if you're like, man, I wonder what my house could sell for. What should they do? Who should they call?
Scan them codes.
Scan the code. Give us a phone call and let us know. We'll come by and tell you the value of your home. But Brandon, let me ask you this. Okay, so they had a trail walk out at Tom Triplett Park. Actually, Pat was there. And they're upset about these warehouses being built built around Tom Triplett Park. So let me ask you a question: as a Pooler resident, how are you feeling about it?
Well, I think a lot of people, just like me, feel frustrated about the Tom Triplett Park. It's one of our few green spaces that our community actually has. It's where people go to walk and play and just get outside, frisbee golf. It's fun. But replacing that kind of environment is with warehouses, really? Does that feel like it's like the right kind of trade-off? No,
No.
no, no. Beyond that, it's not about just the land, it's about the traffic and the congestion and the overall impact for the quality of life that people that actually live here. It's already busy. There's already a bunch of traffic. I've got a crack in my windshield. Thank you, semi trucks. I appreciate you guys. But at some point, we have to ask if we're prioritizing the growth of the overall being of the people who actually live here and want to be here. I don't think that the warehouse is actually something that's going to bring anything better.
Well, no, I mean, just you got to think about the overdevelopment we had talked about many times, just everywhere. So, I mean, if you live in Pooler and you're sick of these warehouses coming in, put it in the chat. I mean, they're ruining Tom Triplett. Are you happy about that? If not,
No,
put it in the
no,
chat.
you're not. You're not. You're not.
And then we're also going to do a poll now. Okay, you need to press the number that's associated with the poll. And I want to say, hey, you guys, thank you guys for joining tonight. I see we got hello, y'all. We got Devilman EA. Josh is up in here. If you're here to say hi to Pat, ask questions. He is ready for it. Put it in the chat right now. We will get to the questions to ask Pat. You can put it right now. We'll get to them, okay? And we really appreciate you guys showing up. And Brandon, I'm just super happy that we're going to be doing this, but here's the poll. Okay. So, do you feel like your voice is heard when big projects are approved in your area? 1 for no, or 1 for yes, 2 for no, and 3 for sometimes. Maybe they listen to us. No. Whoa, that was quick. So we got 1 for no, but answer it in the chat. We really appreciate you being here. And Brandon, I'm excited about this show, man.
Oh my God, me too. Tonight's guest is someone who is stepping forward to represent our district at a time when people are asking serious questions about leadership, direction, and accountability. He's not talking about change. He's putting himself in a position to be responsible for the change. Honorable. Love that. So with the focus on community and economy and everyday issues that we're all running into every day, he's here to share what he believes needs to happen next. So let's welcome Pat Wilver.
Hey, Pat,
guys,
thank you for coming on the show, man. I really appreciate it. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, guys.
Oh, I didn't know.
Well, good. I'm glad that you're here. For the people that don't know who you are or why you got into the race, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you decided to run?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Pat Wilver. We'll start from the beginning. I grew up in rural Western Pennsylvania, and at 18, I left home to go to West Point. So I graduated from there with a degree in civil engineering in 2013 and joined the Army. The Army is what brought me down here. So 2014, I was stationed at Fort Stewart. I was in 1st Battalion, 30th Infantry, which no longer exists. I think it's now an armored battalion and 2nd Brigade there. Spent some time there. 2019, I got tired of the Army, so I lasted about 6 years. And then I got out of the Army, moved from Richmond Hill to Savannah because I love being in Savannah. I live in the east side now. And I started a little business in the real estate industry, kind of like you guys. So we started a company that was primarily helping folks PCS do military moves into Savannah and the surrounding areas. I was also renovating homes. We had a construction company that I ran for a period of time. That was a hell of an education there. I was mainly doing project management, just kind of keeping the timelines on track, making sure materials were where they needed to be when they needed to be there, and that the different crews and the subcontractors had all their, just kind of making sure everything's moving. I did that till I got pretty burnt out of the whole game. I really, didn't like it a whole lot. There's a lot, about that business I think sometimes not to like. And I decided to take a little midlife crisis, maybe you would call it. I hiked the Pacific Crest Trail. So I quit everything. I spent about 5 months walking from Mexico to Canada in 2024. Wow. Yeah, that was super cool. That was like probably the defining experience of my life. And did that, came back to Savannah. I was helping some of my old clients manage their properties. I even went to Georgia Southern. I was taking some philosophy classes, and I'd always had an interest in politics, more from I'm just kind of paying attention to what all these idiots are doing, kind of interest in politics. And I had started, in the 2020 election, I volunteered. If you remember, in Georgia, it was a pretty close election for the presidential election. It was just a few thousand votes. And I actually volunteered to do what's called ballot curing after that. And so what I did is I helped folks. This was after the election already took place, but you might remember there was like a recount going on in Georgia. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I took ballots that had been rejected, and I went to folks and helped them cure those ballots, basically, and was like, hey, your ballot got rejected because of this. If you can fix this, then they'll count your ballot in the recount. So,
oh, wow.
That was actually super cool. And that was my first time ever volunteering in any sort of political capacity. But after the PCT, that hike, I knew that I wanted to be more involved in, actually hey, this is important stuff, right? We've got to be involved in this democracy or it doesn't really work, right? So I started volunteering with the Young Democrats of Georgia. I helped. There was a PSC election. Are you familiar with that?
The Public Service Commissioner. Is that correct?
Public Service Commission. So Public Service Commission is it's a board in Georgia. It's a state level office, but basically they regulate Georgia Power. And I don't know about y'all, but I'm pissed at Georgia Power. And so that election was coming up, and I said, we're going to help canvass for these Democratic PSC candidates so that we can get, some fresh blood on that PSC and stick it to Georgia Power. So that was my first kind of organizing thing. And anyway, I was looking at this race, and I think there's a lot of great folks running. Don't get me wrong, but I didn't see anybody who was really speaking directly to what I thought were the deepest issues, which is money in politics, right? It's we're focused a lot on surface level issues that are important, don't get me wrong, but until you get money out of our political system by overturning the Citizens United ruling, a lot of these other things are impossible to solve. And so I didn't think anybody was speaking in that, and not in like a way that resonated with me as a young person, with a lot of other young people that I knew. And so, but I was pretty nervous about I was Oh, go ahead.
Not Patrick. Us.
Okay. Yeah,
Young.
yeah. No, I'm almost done. I'm almost done. I know I've been yapping for about 5 minutes, but
We're the
I was
young
pretty
ones.
nervous about throwing myself out there, and so I just started putting out political content on social media, and I wanted to see like, hey, I'm going to put my authentic self out here and what I believe, and if it resonates with folks, then I'll know because it'll take off on social media, right? And if it's not a message that people want to hear right now, then it won't take off, and then I shouldn't run. I should support somebody else. Well, it did take off. I grew my following from like 850 to like 10,000 in 6 weeks. And then I said, screw it. I entered the race at the very last minute, and we've been growing ever since. Like it's been pretty crazy how quick things have grown. Like the following now on Instagram is 20,000, and that's an engaged following too. That's donating money to me.
Wow.
We've raised almost 60 grand in the 60 days that I've been a candidate. And that's mostly small dollar donations from Instagram. And I've also recruited a lot of volunteers. We're over 140 volunteers that we've recruited, mostly through Instagram. Like a lot of these folks are folks I never met before. A lot of them have never even, some of them haven't even voted before, right? And they're coming out to knock doors for me and volunteer. So it's been pretty crazy. It's growing like really, really fast. And it's super cool to kind of be a part of this.
Well, you saying that, Pat, let me ask you this. Do you feel like the young voters are really energized because of the way it seems like everything is geared towards the older generations and the, acid bubbles and all this stuff? Do you feel like the younger people are like getting into this because they feel like they're like mortgaging their future away?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's exactly why young folks are getting excited about my campaign. Cause I'm saying things I think that are on a lot of people's minds, and they're like, why is nobody saying this? But then I come out and say it, right? And I think that's why it's resonating, right? I mean, because young people are kind of screwed right now, right? I mean, you can't get started in life because you've got to take out, student loans to get a job, right? And those student loans hang around your neck like an anchor, right? And you can't start a family because of that. Like, I mean, you see it. You guys are in real estate. I see it. Having been in the real estate industry, people trying to buy a home, people can't even, sometimes you can't even rent because of the student debt, right? Or the medical debt. This is something that, I was in the, helping other people manage properties. Like we stopped rejecting tenants or applicants if they had delinquent medical debt because like everybody's got delinquent medical debt, right? I mean, it's like, we're seeing it so often that it's like, you know what, like, but this is a thing that we wonder why. Why's the birth rate going down, right? Well, maybe it's because it sucks to have a kid, right? Maybe it sucks to be young in this country, and we've got to do something about it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And look, do you feel like our voices are being heard? No. Everybody. No. Everybody.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's how a lot of folks I talk to out there on the campaign trail, a lot of folks just kind of put their blinders on, right? And I've talked to folks who've said, hey, you know what? I'm not focused on politics anymore because I don't believe that I can change it. I don't believe that my vote matters. I'm just going to focus on like my little sphere, right? The things I can control and not think about everything else. And that's because this money in politics thing, Citizens United, you guys are you familiar with that Supreme Court decision? Or maybe I'll explain it for the benefit of folks.
This is the bane. There's many things that have tore down our government. That was almost definitely one of them.
Yeah. Let me explain it. If you want to explain it.
Good.
Yeah. I'll explain it. So in 2010, the Supreme Court passed a decision called Citizens United. And in that decision, they more or less opened the floodgates to as much money as a billionaire or a corporation wants to pump into the political system. Like there's no limits on the amount of money. So that's what gave rise to the super PACs that you may have heard of. And, right now AIPAC is kind of like the boogeyman, right? But there's a lot of other PACs too that are, just advocating against the interests of the American people. And there was a study that was done in 2014. And these researchers looked at every bill that came before the House of Representatives, or the Congress in general, House and Senate. And for every bill, they measured public opinion of that bill, right? Basically, how much do regular people want this bill to pass or not pass? And then they looked at what do the lobbyists want, right? What does the money want from this bill? And I think you probably know where I'm going with this. What they found was the more that lobbyists wanted a bill, the more likely it was to pass. The more that you and I wanted a bill to pass, the less likely it was to pass, right? So how can we say we live in a democracy when our Congress does not do the things that we want them to do? And so when anybody tells me, like, hey, I don't even vote anymore, I say, I don't blame you, man. Like, I don't. And that's what I'm trying to change, right? And I think that's why my message resonates with a lot of people, because I'm just dialed in on, like, we've got to do this. If I could go to Congress and do nothing but this one thing, then I could leave and say, you know what, I did what I set out to do, right? And that's got to change. So
you don't take money from large PACs?
No, I'll never take a dollar from a corporate PAC. There are good PACs out there, like the Sierra Club, for example, is like an environmentalist organization. There are organizations who advocate for good policy that I believe in. If the Sierra Club was like, hey, Pat, we like your environmental message, we want to give you some money, I'd be like, hell yeah. Like, we're aligned on the issues, right? But any sort of corporate PAC, any sort of PAC like an APAC that's advocating for the interests of a foreign country, I would never take any money from. That's my role. So my campaign right now is funded by I see the comment from Jennifer there. Yeah, there are few and far between. Absolutely.
She's gonna go. She's gonna go.
Yep. So yeah, there are some good PACs out there, and there are, like, lobbyists have become a bad word. Well, there are like people who go and lobby for the environment, right? So like, there are people who go and lobby for unions. So like, not every lobbyist is a bad lobbyist, but we've let the corporations have all the influence in Washington and in our state houses, and really in our county commissions and in our cities too, right? That's
well, I think it's like the city part. So this is why we're getting so involved in the city stuff, because we're realizing that it makes a ton of difference to be involved in the city stuff.
Yeah.
And so speaking of.
Yeah.
So Pooler residents have been pushing back against warehouse projects right next to Tom Triplett Park with concerns about traffic, environmental impact, and quality of life. You were there. Let's hear what you had to say.
Yeah, so there was and 90% of Pooler residents don't want this to happen. And yet it seems like it's going to happen anyway. Why is that? It's because of the corrupting influence of money and greed in our politics and in our society. Number one. These developers out of Atlanta, who are the only people who stand to benefit from this development, they're getting this through because of money corrupting our process. And that's why my number one priority, if I get to Congress, and I will get to Congress, is to overturn the Citizens United ruling by constitutional amendment.
So Pat, I mean, you talked about protecting communities and the environment. What should leaders be doing different in situations like this when it comes to, the warehouses just crowding out parks, or overdevelopment in Port Wentworth or Richmond Hill with the nickel refinery and all that?
Yeah. So I think there's a couple different parts of this problem. And the first, everybody, like, there are some officials who they're not corrupt, right? But they look at just, oh, this is going to bring in tax revenue for the county, right? And that's like the only thing they care about. And I get that, because you've got budgets to make, but what's the point of making your city budget if people hate living in a city, right? Tom Triplett Park is a beautiful place, and if it was surrounded by warehouses, it would suck a lot. Like, it would never be the same. It would never be the same if you had to walk down those trails and there's the warehouse sitting there, and there's going to be noise and the semi trucks and everything else. Like, it's not the same. So that's the one thing that I would say is, like, we can't just prioritize the money in the economy. And I think some of these city leaders too fall prey to the job creation argument. But especially a warehouse, it's got some decent paying jobs up front with the construction, but a lot of those construction workers are not even living around here. They're big contractors, and they bring these guys in, number one. And number two, what are the wages at a warehouse? They're not very good for the vast majority of folks there. And so that is the thing there. And the other thing I would say too is you look at the processes, right? A lot of these cities, they don't follow their own processes with these. And that's the same thing with the warehouses in Pooler. There are impact studies that haven't been done that, according to, the city's own regulations were supposed to be done. So these municipalities are often cutting corners on their own stuff, and they're often ignoring their own long-term plans, because there are long-term plans published for these cities in these towns that they just throw them out. So the problem is, when you throw out a long-term plan, you take away any citizen's ability to have some predictability over what's going on. And the last thing I would say is, when you have a meeting, there was a meeting that just happened today. It's probably over by now. I don't know what the result was, but the last meeting, that room was packed full of people who, I don't think anybody in there argued for the warehouse. And yet, how does the voting go, right? Well, they voted to approve it or to move it forward. So how can you look all these citizens in the face when they come to you to tell you what they want, and you say, this is going to happen, right? And we wonder why people don't show up to vote, right? Yeah.
That's what got me on the data centers.
Yeah, man. Well, that's it. It's this money, man. It's this money in our politics. It's ruined, because nobody wants data centers, and we're subsidizing these things, by the way.
Yeah.
Right? Because, and not just data centers, but warehouses. A lot of these warehouses, like there's the warehouses on Veterans Parkway. Do you know those new warehouses on Veterans? Right? Those things are empty, dude.
Empty.
Like, they're empty. Why are they building new ones in Pooler? How about you fill the ones, like, we've got warehouses at home. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
Go finish these warehouses first. Fill these up. But a lot of the infrastructure too. A lot of municipalities are not getting the required, the necessary, like, impact fees, right? Because we're having to upgrade our infrastructure. It's coming out of taxpayer funds. It's often not funded by these developers. They're not funded as much as it should be, and so our property taxes go up. Right. And I don't know if that's specifically the case for those warehouses, but that's, often what happens. Or we give tax incentives, right? Look at all the incentives that went to Hyundai, for example.
Right.
What's that doing for folks? I don't think a lot.
It's nothing. It's not doing anything. Jesus Christ. I feel like they're shells. They're building shells so they can put a data center.
Well, the thing with those tilt-up warehouses, you can kind of put anything in there. I don't know about a data center, but I think a lot of it is just speculative. There's some warehouses that they'll sit vacant for years before they find a tenant.
Right.
So
into the chat. So there shouldn't even be anything like lobbyist. Yeah, I know this Sierra Club. There's a few others that are, they're a few between, man. Thanks, Jennifer. Love you. There's a good pack out there. They aren't all bad. For sure. Got you, girl. So I guess some lobbyists aren't needed, but not many. Mm-hmm. I think all of the warehouses must be a money laundering scheme. What the HE double hockey sticks do we need all of them for? What do we need them for? All the warehouses. No.
What do we need them for? I think it's they put a lot of stuff in there that we don't even need to buy. That's how I look at it. It's a lot of junk.
It's gonna be So what is your idea for a solution?
Well, this is a big problem, and like I said, it starts with this constitutional amendment to get money out of our political process. That's the big, that's the big goal. But there are some things specifically talking about the local level that, we have this federal system of government, first of all. So we've empowered local, your municipality and your county, in my opinion, should have the most power, right? Because that is where citizens have the most impact, is mm-hmm. on their county and their city officials. So I do not want to strip power away from the local level, right? That's the first thing I'll say whenever I'm looking at any policy, right? And as somebody who's running for federal office, what I want to look for is what are ways that I can support local citizens and their municipalities to do the right thing. And a way to do that, I actually just had a meeting today with a guy, and he works for an engineering firm. And so we were talking a little bit about, code requirements and going through, permitting and things like that. And a lot of these bigger developments, there are some levers that the federal government can pull to perhaps encourage local governments to do what's right. And one lever that we could look at is perhaps we can change the law a little bit when some of these developments require approval from the EPA or the Corps of Engineers to do work, especially if you're developing a wetland, right? So maybe we could have some stricter requirements where in order to get that approval, or in order to get any necessary approval from the federal government, perhaps we can say, hey, county, city, this development must have, we have to check all the boxes that it went through the proper process and that you had public hearings with enough advance notice to the citizens and didn't cut any corners in your process. And if you don't do that, then we won't give approval at the federal level for this project to move forward. That can be, one example of how we do that. We could also withhold any sort of federal subsidies, right? If they're, why should we subsidize a project that local citizens don't want, right? So that's another lever that we can pull. Another possibility is, federal funding in general. And I'm thinking of, do you guys remember when they, and I don't remember this because I wasn't alive, but when they raised the drinking age from 18 to 21?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, before all our time. So when we raise the drinking age from 18 to 21, that is a classic states' rights issue. So the federal government could not force the states to raise the drinking age. But what they could do is they could say, you know what, we're not going to give you any highway funding until you raise the drinking age to 21. And I think something that perhaps we could do at the federal level is say, hey, states, municipalities, we're not going to give you federal highway funding as long as you're giving tax breaks to developers to come in and you're hollowing out in your own tax base and you're not forcing the developers to invest in the infrastructure upgrades. Because what we're doing right now is we're subsidizing developers to come in here and put in these warehouses and these data centers, and they are not upgrading the electric grids. They're not upgrading our transportation systems. The taxpayer is footing the bill for upgrading highways and drainage and utilities and everything else. And I think at the federal level, we should say, you know what, we're not going to give you a dime as long as you're giving away money to these developers. And I think that would force states and municipalities to put the cost for upgrading infrastructure on the person or the corporations who benefit the most from it. Does that make sense?
Well, I think it would have to be, when you say that, that's kind of what you're talking about, where we'd have to, the monies have to be out of politics because they've bought all the way down.
I mean, that's why the first thing is Citizens United has to go, because this is not possible until we get money out of, because right now, I'm running for office. I think I have a really good chance of winning here in this district, right? But it's an uphill battle, dude, because if I get the Democratic Party nomination, I'm going to go against Jim Kingston, most likely. He's got a war chest of $2 million, and it's all corporate money, or damn near all of it, right? That's a lot of money to fight against, right?
Right.
It's hard to fight all that money. So we got to get it out. Otherwise, guys like that will keep getting elected, and they're just going to do these giveaways to their buddies who fund their campaigns.
Can I get the buddy? Can I have that buddy?
All right, I had talked about data centers at length. We put a petition together, but I figure, we pretty much agree that you got to get money out of politics, or else none of it can be fixed, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to move on from the data center one. We're going to talk about the petition at the end. So if you came here to talk about the petition, we'll talk about it at the end, okay? Because I think you just agree with me anyway. So let me ask you the next question, okay?
Yep.
Now, you're a veteran, and we're seeing the U.S. getting pulled into another growing conflict with Iran. Yep. So let's play this video real quick.
President Trump is rejecting Iran's latest proposal to end the war. The president calling it, quote, not acceptable, saying Iran hasn't paid a big enough price for what they've done over the last 47 years. Here's ABC's Tom Burridge in Tel Aviv tonight.
With trade through that critical waterway, the Strait of Hormuz, still blocked, President Trump tonight announcing a new plan to help guide cargo ships linked to countries not involved in the war to safety. Posting on social media, the president writing, quote, for the good of Iran, the Middle East and the United States, we have told these countries that we will guide their ships safely out of these restricted waterways so they can freely and ably get on with their business. The president's announcement coming after another cargo vessel was reportedly attacked by multiple small craft off the coast of Iran, according to the British Navy's monitoring group. It's recorded more than 40 incidents of vessels attacked, damaged or turned back in or near the Strait of Hormuz since the war began.
So from your perspective, what role should Congress play here? And how do we avoid getting stuck in a long-term conflict that, well, we probably were both a part of in the past?
Well, Congress is supposed to approve all wars. I mean, that's what is in our Constitution. That's an Article 1 power of Congress. And the president should never be able to take us to war like this. And the reason that is because our founding fathers and the framers of the Constitution, understood the dangers of having one man in control of all of that power, right? And they had overthrown a king. They knew that you cannot let one person make that decision to take us to war. And it has to be the people's representatives in Congress. And so we've been, for many, many years, Donald Trump's not the first person to take us to war without Congress's authorization. Far from it, right? This is a trend that's been going on for decades. But this is the worst example, the most flagrant example of this. And it's been a absolute strategic blunder. I think this might go down as the strategic blunder of like the worst blunder that the United States has ever made. Because what we've seen in this is we've been made to look like a joke. Yep. We've been made to look like an absolute joke. And it's not in the news very much, but a lot of our bases in the Middle East have been severely damaged. And we are now, Iran is sending $5,000 drones, swarms of them, and we're spending $5 million per missile interceptor to shoot down these little drones. And we've had to move missile interceptors even from the Korean Peninsula, which is I spent a year in the 8th Army headquarters on the Korean Peninsula. And these missile interceptors, which we need there because the North Koreans have ballistic missiles and nukes, right? But we moved them to the Middle East because we were running out of interceptors, right? We've got the Strait of Hormuz effectively blocked off by Iran. And we're having a hard time getting it open. It's kind of embarrassing. And now, Iran's even charging tolls for ships to go through the strait, tolls payable in Chinese currency. And so I think this is going to hasten even, why does the world want to hold US dollars when we're kind of showing ourselves to be reckless, frankly?
Well, and two, I think the Middle Eastern countries are just realizing that we can't protect them like they thought we were going to. Yep. So all of these deals that we have with these countries, they're like, well, if the U.S. can't protect us, then why are we dealing with them? You know what I'm saying?
What are we doing?
What are we doing? And then Jennifer's in the chat talking about how no one's talking about how the dollar is broken because of this. Well, I'll talk about it because I think this is the beginning of the end of the U.S. dollar, right? And it's not just Iran, right? I think, but look at $39 trillion in debt, right? $39 trillion in debt. Our debt just passed 100% of GDP. We're paying $1 trillion every year in interest to service that debt. It's more than a defense budget. We're paying more in interest than we pay in war, right? That historically is not a good sign for an empire, right? You look at the collapse of the Roman Empire, you look at the collapse of the Imperial Spain, you look at the collapse of the British Empire, right? These empires are all brought down by excessive debt, by excessive spending in these foreign wars, these wars of imperialism, and we're now repeating history. And so we have got to stop the interventions abroad that don't do anything for you or me, don't do anything for us. We've got to get this debt under control, or else everybody's going to quit using the US dollar. Everybody's going to quit buying US treasuries. You're a loan officer, right? No, you're a real estate.
We're both realtors. We're both realtors.
Okay, well, you being in the real estate industry, though, you probably understand what happens if people stop buying US treasuries, then the interest rates on US treasuries go up. And as the interest rates on U.S. treasuries go up, so do the mortgage rates. And now our cost of living crisis is even worse because of the war in Iran, right? And because of the debt. This is all connected, and it's a big damn problem.
A huge problem. So I'm going to jump into the chat. So we got one about how about our rural neighbors and their concern about with farming and healthcare, something our current office holders haven't given two hoots about. How do you appeal to these folks?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start with farming. rural farmers have been absolutely crushed with a host of different problems, right? Tariffs, are basically kind of like the last straw with a lot of these folks. We've had in our country for the past few decades a trend of small farmers basically being bought up by these big, mega farms, right? And we have farm subsidies that, are typically, they end up benefiting the biggest farming operations oftentimes more than these small farmers, right? So we've got to, first of all, we've got to rewrite policy at the federal level. The bigger your farm gets, the harder it should be to continue to operate, in my opinion. And we've got the opposite, right? We make it easier for bigger farms. So we should make it so that we're getting the most assistance to the smallest farms, because we've got to keep the money in actual people. Like this land, it's so important to me to do that. And that's not the system that we've had. And so, we got to give these folks some stability. And that means to stop doing these trade wars willy-nilly. It means to stop going into war willy-nilly. That's why Congress is supposed to take us to war. It's why Congress is supposed to enact tariffs, right? The Senate specific, so like these things we do that so that people can have more predictability, right? So one guy can't just like wake up one morning and say, I'm going to do this and screw up a whole market and put a whole lot of farmers out of business because they can't get fertilizer and they can't sell their products because China stopped buying all the soybeans, right? So I think that's very important. Talking about healthcare, rural hospitals have all been, have been shuttered. There's a lot of places where people can't even get care. I believe in universal healthcare, and I think that's something that we need to have in this country. And so along with that would also mean investment in some of these rural hospitals that have been shuttered. I don't think somebody should have to drive an hour to get to a hospital, right? And they get some care. I also look at some other things too. Like we can talk about how, I think the supply of doctors in this country is kind of artificially constrained, right? We can have more doctors, we can have more healthcare providers. We could even talk about how private equity has bought up a lot of your doctor's offices. Like you used to go to a doctor's office, right? And now most people just go to an urgent care, right? And where your doctor's office used to be owned by Dr. Smith or Dr. Jones, it's now ABC Corp, right? I mean, and I think that's another part of the problem in our country, right? Is all this consolidation. So
based on the comments that we're seeing right now, frustration about money and the politics and leadership decisions and the trust in the government, what do you think so many Americans feel like the system is no longer working for them, and what would actually need to change to rebuild the trust?
Yeah, well, they feel like it's not working for them because it's not.
Exactly.
Exactly. They're right. They're right. It's not working for them. The system is set up to hoover as much money out of you and I as it can, right? And it's been like that for a long time.
Pat, we don't own anything anymore, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're talking about
right?
Did you hear about the subscription? Did you hear about the Ford locks where they had to? The NTSB had made it a law that any vehicle made after 2024 would have to have an automatic stop lock in the car. For what purpose? No one knows. But you can imagine, so they can stop you whenever they want to. I mean, it's stuff like that. And that's what's frustrating in this world, man.
Yeah, well, you don't own anything. Everything's subscription based. But even the things you do own, I mean, it's all designed to break in 5 or 10 years, right? And so
it's 2 years.
As soon as you pay off a car, you got to get a new one, right? And so, do you ever really own a car? You're renting your car, right? You're basically, everybody's renting their car, and because it's not built to last. So not only does this suck money out of people, but it's also horrible for the environment, right? Because we're just, producing these things that don't. I'll give you an example. I recently, property I managed for one of my clients, we had to replumb the whole house. And there was a water heater in there that was 60 years old, still functional, still work, right? Good luck buying a water heater. You get 7 to 10 years out of those things nowadays, right? That thing was
right.
You know what really pissed me off? The code inspector made us swap that water heater out for a new one to close out.
Can I get it?
Yeah. It's gone. I'm sorry. That was a couple months ago. But that's just an example, right? I mean, we don't own anything.
It's wild. I'm gonna tell you. This is a lot of the stuff that you talk about, I agree with. You talk about money, term limits is another thing that you expressed support for. Let me play a video of something you said.
Party and the right wing in this country has been on a 30 or 40-year quest to remake the federal judiciary in order to do the things that they can't do by legislation, because they know that a lot of the things they want to do are so unpopular it'll never pass. So we need to look at these term limits that we talked about. I think we need a term limit of 1 10-year term on the Supreme Court, and I think we need that on the federal bench as well. And I think we need to start aggressively wielding power to remake the judiciary. Thank you.
Thank you.
I totally agree with you. So you said 10-year term for justices, right?
Yep.
So how many terms should members of Congress serve or be allowed to serve in? Why that number?
Yeah, I like somewhere between 3 and 5 terms, and I think that is a good number to, you want to have some people in there who have a little bit of institutional knowledge, right, and just a little bit of depth of experience. And that's the main argument against term limits, by the way, because people will make compelling arguments against term limits, and they'll say, hey, look, if you do this, nobody's going to know how the system works, and it might actually make it easier for lobbyists to get their way. And I get that argument. I understand it. My counter argument is basically power corrupts, dude. And if you're there for 20, 30, 40 years, like even if you get in there a good guy, I don't know how you stay a good guy that long. And even if you do, even if you are still a good dude, you're totally out of touch with regular people at that point, right? You lost. Yeah, I think, and when I look at, even just in this campaign, dude, I mean, it's all consuming, right? It's all consuming, and I can't imagine a 20 or 30-year career doing this, right? The responsibility. So I got to think, like, either these people are a little crazy, or maybe they just over time don't do as good of a job. They don't do the job that they should. So I think that's why we need term limits, frankly.
Both are true.
Yeah.
Both are true. So can you speak about the national debt? Every day I worry about my child's financial future. How will you afford college, healthcare, and the home when he's paying for our mistakes?
Yeah. So the national debt, I look at that as a tax on unborn Americans, right? That's what that is. It's taxation without representation on the kids, because somebody's gonna have to pay it off. And I think the ways we pay that off, I talked about getting us out of these foreign wars, right? We're spending it's about $1 trillion a year on I'm just going to call it the war budget. I don't call it the defense budget anymore, right? On the war budget. And just 10 years ago, it was, I think, only 700 grand. So, I think we need to get that down way below 700 grand. I think we need to really slash that thing. And I think the other thing too is I honestly and frankly think that there should be a wealth tax on extreme wealth. And I'm talking like billionaires and up. And the reason I think that a wealth tax is what we have to look at is because they avoid income taxes through, they don't actually pay themselves any income, right? They just take out loans against their wealth, against their assets, stocks, real estate, whatever it is. So as long as they're not actually making income, then how the hell do you get at taxing them, right? And I know that this is, a lot of people say, oh, we shouldn't be going after people's money like that. It's like a freedom issue for some people, and I get that argument. And my counter argument, if that's what you think, is that you got to realize that money is power, right? And when you let somebody consolidate so much money, you've let them have incredible power over you. And that is why we just cannot let people have that much power. It corrupts our democracy. It's not even, I don't want or need all that money, right? It's not because I'm jealous of their money. I think most of those people are probably pretty miserable, frankly. I mean, can you imagine having $1 billion? Can you imagine if you had $1 billion, right? Just think about it. What would you do if you had $1 billion? Or if somebody just gave you $1 billion, what would you do?
I don't have to shop for things. I don't have to get my own car. I don't have to open the door. I don't have to.
Savannah's nooks and crannies would be international.
I'll tell you what I would do. I would not.
I would buy all the restaurants.
Y'all would never see me again. I would never work another day in my life. And yet these people get $1 billion and they want more. It's not enough. How is $1 billion not enough for you? There's something wrong with you as a person if $1 billion isn't enough for you. And I think you got to go to therapy. You need therapy, not more money. That's what you need. Figure out why you're unsatisfied.
BetterHelp.com, not sponsored.
And that's, they get mad because it's like, oh, you're taking my money, bro. You are They are literally finding ways to steal money from the people, and then they want to get mad because we want to tax. You steal?
They took our money. They took our money. Exactly. If you look at a chart of the national debt, okay, and look at it over the long term. If you go back to World War II, the national debt was super high at the end of World War II because we just got done fighting a fucking war. Sorry, a world. My bad. A world war, right? The debt was super high. We paid it off pretty quickly because we jacked up taxes, right? Especially on the wealthiest people. We said, look, we got to pay this thing off. I'm sorry, guys, but chip in. Back then, they said, they probably didn't love it, but, they chipped in. We got that debt down. Reagan gets into office, trickle-down economics. The debt starts going up, all right? The debt starts going up pretty bigly, right? We get it back under control a little bit in the 90s. Kind of starts ticking back up again with the wars, with the global war on terrorism, and then what happens in 08, 09? They turn on the money printer, okay?
And we should have bought a house.
And if you look at a chart of our national debt, it is skyrocketed since then, massively. And also, what also happened around that time? That's when Citizens United passed. Do you think it's a coincidence that our debt started skyrocketing at the very same time that we decided that we can have unlimited money in our politics, right? And so
I never thought of that.
Right.
Where's the unlimited money in my pocket?
Right. So we turn this money printer on. What happens when the money printer runs is, the Federal Reserve, it'll inflate asset values, first of all, right? And so when that money printer goes on, it goes to the wealthiest people first before it ever works its way down. And so we've really, all this money, a lot of it has been a giveaway. And you can even look at let's look at Walmart, for example. I love the example of Walmart. Walmart came around, and in the 1980s, it destroyed every city. Every little town had some shops downtown. They built a Walmart, wiped out any sort of shop, right? And now Walmart's figuring money up. Now Dollar General is the new Walmart, right? And not only did Walmart destroy these local businesses, but Walmart is subsidized by the U.S. taxpayer because Walmart pays people less than a living wage. A lot of Walmart employees are receiving government subsidies for, Medicaid or for welfare, right? Food stamps, whatever. So we literally are subsidizing. This is an example of how we subsidize the wealth of these billionaires. We do, right? This is just one example. So, when I talk about taxes, it's just getting what they owe us.
Absolutely.
The Rockefellers, that's what happened. The Rockefellers is what happened. They're the Waltons of oil.
Yep.
Yeah.
They ruined our country lots of years ago. Just saying. So we have comments. So why the kids are having such a hard time seeing the future? They're angry and violent and uneducated. What kind of future do they have? Also, I mentioned term limits. Okay. I see you, Jennifer. You're doing too much. I see you putting.
No, you're doing good. Keep going, Jennifer. We love the comments.
She gets me every time. Love her. Love her. She agrees with you. You're doing great. She agrees with you. So Wonderful. You're doing good.
All right. So you've been outspoken about, it's one thing to say, hey, we got to get money out of politics. It's another thing to get enough people together to make it happen. So how are you going to do that? Because a lot of these people basically don't want it to happen. So with the term limits, with the money in politics, all the things that you're going after, a one-person ban ain't going to get that to happen. So how do you plan on doing it?
Yeah, absolutely not. It's impossible. I can't do it myself, right? If I'm the only one in Congress who's saying this, then there's no shot. It's never going to happen.
Fortunately, so how are you going to get the ones together?
Well, that's because here's the thing. There's a lot of other people all across the country who are running on the same platform, right? And some are more prominent national politicians, like you probably heard of Graham Plattner or James Talrico, but there's a lot of other people who are running for seats like this one, who are of the same mindset that this is what we have to do. So it's not just me saying this, right? I might be saying this the loudest in our district, but there are people all around, and it's something that most people are thinking. And so this is not something that I don't think I'm going to like lead this movement or anything. I think I'm just part of it, right? I think this is part of something that's happening in our country. But what I always try to frame the conversation around is there's a lot of folks, especially politicians, I don't think dream big enough, right? And people are not, people are always tied around like, oh, this is what's possible. We're only going to think about what's possible. Now is not the time for that. Now is not the time for conventional thinking. It's not the time for limiting ourselves. Like most of our limits in life are self-imposed. I believe that we can do this and we've got to fight for it. But amending the Constitution is very difficult, right? You've got to get 2/3, in the House and Senate. You got to get 3/4 of the states to do it. It is a damn high bar to clear. And so to clear that bar, it's going to take time, and it's going to take continuing to hammer on these ideas. But these ideas, bro, they resonate. Republican, Democrat, it doesn't matter. It does not matter. People agree on this stuff. And there are a lot of Republicans who I talk to who say, you know what, man, we don't agree on some things for sure, but we agree on that. And so my message to any Republican is like, look, I've told you what my number one priority is. I've got some other things I want to do that you may not like, but damn it, if we can at least get the money out of politics, then you know what? In the future, after my term limit's up, right, then maybe you can run for the office, right? And maybe you can go do the things you want to do. And you can know that you're going to do it in a Congress that is full of people who are not bought and paid for, who are there for the right reasons, and I think can sit down like adults and hash out policy, even though they disagree on some things. So that's the future that we got to fight for.
Holy shit, you got Jennifer's support. You're winning. You're winning.
I think I agree with you, and I agree with everybody in here, saying like, if you could just, if we could just chip away, right? If we could get the term limits, or whichever one, the money would have to be first, right? Don't you think, Pat?
The money? Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think, we can walk and chew gum at the same time too, right? It's not like we can only do one thing, but I think that you got to have priorities. If you try to make everything a priority, then nothing's a priority.
You can do both?
I think so. You can do both. I know. It's crazy.
It drives me insane. Jennifer said, I know you're right. I miss the days that we could say, let's agree. Stop it. To disagree and keep it moving. There was news today that more than 200 Democrat candidates have pledged corporate PAC money, ban congressional stock trading, and crack down on campaign finances. Pledged to reject.
So I guess there's a pledge to reject all those same things. We get 200 Democrats already on board. I'm sure there's Republicans on board to kind of try to stop the thing. I think, let me ask you, Pat, what do you think about people getting involved in politics? It feels like any local elections, they really don't have much show out. I think, I want to say 1,300 people voted in the Port Wentworth city election. So how do we battle that?
Show up.
I think it really takes organizing. Right. And I see, this is something I think about a lot because I have looked at these elections, right? You look at the Savannah City Council election, which is going to be next year. They do it in an off year and hardly anybody goes to vote in that. And the candidates also, they really don't raise a whole lot of money. It's actually pretty cheap to buy yourself an alderman, right? No, I mean, I hate to say it like that, but, so if there's people in Savannah who are upset about the way things are going, I don't think it's too difficult to organize some folks and to get some things, cranking, because it's not enough just to go to these meetings and complain. Obviously, we've shown that you can go to meetings and complain and not. I've been an NPC. Have you ever gone to the NPC, the Savannah Chatham NPC? So that's that's one of the boards there, and I go there every once in a while to voice my displeasure about something. And, you got a guy serving on that board who's like this notorious scumbag slumlord who's, basically got ran out of Atlanta, came over here. He's been arrested for stiffen his suppliers at his restaurant. That's actually pretty recently. You can look that up. So allegedly, innocent until proven
Allegedly.
guilty.
Allegedly. Don't flag.
We've got this corruption going on, and I think it just takes a little bit of. There are some fine. There absolutely, yeah. There are some fine aldermen and alderwomen. Don't get me wrong. I'm just taking an example. But get involved, right? I think that's the thing. Is like we've got to get involved. We can have organizations to start. Neighborhood associations are a great place to get started, to start organizing with your neighbors and to start paying attention to what's going on. Showing up to some of these meetings. That's the most important thing that people can do. And I think it's if you are somebody who's pissed off about what's going on, then hey, like get organized and maybe run, right? Maybe run yourself.
Hey, I'm saying
I don't
agree.
run no more. I don't run anymore. my knees hurt. What is like? So the whole problem that I'm trying to grasp is like the Democrats and the Republicans, and it's like what is the happy medium to where it's not like less out dick you, kind of thing. Like, why is there not like a simpatico kind of thing?
Like we've got this two-party system because the two parties want there to just be this choice, right? This shitty choice. I mean, and it's part of what keeps people from going to the polls, right? And it's what empowers these party machines to keep running these shitty candidates we don't like, because they say, well, suckers, you're just going to have to vote for one of them. And I'll give you an example. In the state of Georgia, if you wanted to run as an independent for the race I'm running in, the first district of Georgia, you would have to get a petition put together with 5%. You'd have to get a signature from 5% of the registered voters in your whole district. So that comes out to like 30,000 some signatures.
What?
Hand signatures, 30,000, right? Ish. It's around there. So you have to go get all those. It's impossible, right? You can't, you're not going to do that. But if you want to run in the primary of one of the two major parties, you just have to raise $5,200. $5,200 is a lot easier to come by than 30,000 signatures, right? And so, that's what forces people to pick one of the two parties, right? And these parties have a lot of control over, who ends up getting these nominations. And so a lot of these things are, they're almost, I don't want to say decided, but it can be an uphill battle if you're not on the inside of things already, right? I mean, and I won't talk about my own race, but I'll talk about Jim Kingston's race on the Republican side. Jim Kingston, no experience, doesn't even live in Savannah, really, right? But the whole party's lined up behind him. He's got all the endorsements. He's got all the money. He's going to win, right?
Why?
Why? Because I don't know why. I think they just decided that he would be a good lackey for them, right? And
the shade.
That's what I think. We'll see. I shouldn't talk bad about him, though. I think he's anyway.
It is.
All right. So I want to ask you one last question. And I want to say, hey, everybody in the chat, thank you guys so much for joining. Jennifer, hello, y'all. Yara, thank you for joining. Thomas Barbie, thank you for joining. I appreciate it. So thank you, everybody, for joining. I appreciate you guys coming on. Pat, one last question. Yep. What is something that you wanted to talk about that we did not ask you?
Oh, man. We covered a lot of ground here today. We didn't talk a whole lot about the environment, I don't think, and environmental, because we got money in politics. We got the war in Iran, that's big. We got the national debt. We talked about universal health care briefly. Yeah, I want to talk about the environment, I think.
Okay.
Protecting the environment. Yeah, to me, it's one of the most important things to me personally. And I mentioned at the beginning that I hiked across the country on the Pacific Crest Trail. So I spent 5 months living in the wilderness, right, in the mountains, Sierra Nevada and the Cascade Range. And, that's going to have a pretty big impact on a person. And I realized out there that we are connected to all of this, right? We're not separate from the earth. We're a part of it. And if we do not take care of our home, then we're not going to have a home, right? And our kids and our grandkids and everybody, like, we've got to protect this place. And right now we're using it. We're using our earth instead of stewarding it. And looking at specifically coastal Georgia, we have some really beautiful landscapes, man. We've got these beautiful saltwater marshes, which are some of the most, like, our coastline is relatively undeveloped, right? We've got these undeveloped islands on Ossabaw and Wausau, and Cumberland Island is a beautiful place, and Sapelo Island. And my God, we got to protect these places. And we can't keep developing. Even around Tom Triplett Park, there's some beautiful wetlands that we can't develop, because these wetlands, not only are they beautiful, right, but they also control flooding for us, and they also filter our water. And the water that rains, it goes into the ground and it refills our aquifer, right, the Floridian aquifer, which is where we get our water. And right now we're sucking all the water out of it for these, for the Hyundai plant, for these paper mills and everything else. And then we're paving over so the water doesn't get back in. What are we going to drink, right? So one of the things I'm really big on in Congress is strengthening the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act, like these environmental protections that we absolutely need. Because right now we've got a lot of toxic pollution. We've got paper mills that pollute, in Altamaha. You can't even, there's limits to how much, fish you can eat on that river, right? Because of all the junk that we dump in there. And that paper mill has been in non-compliance with the EPA's regulations for 7 quarters, right? What are they dumping in that water? We don't even know, right? Look at Glenn County, down around Brunswick. There are several Superfund sites where in the past industries have just polluted that area. They haven't cleaned it up. And now people in Glenn County get cancer at way higher than national rate, right? We're literally poisoning ourselves. And so, that is, I don't think there will be a bigger environmentalist in Congress than me if I get in there, and I will.
Power to the government.
Yeah.
Well, man, hey Pat, I want to say thank you so much. I mean, it seems like your races are picking up some fire. It seems like you're doing well. I wish you the best of luck. Brandon, did you have anything else you wanted to ask Pat before we let him go?
What is your hair regimen?
My hair regimen. Should I let it down?
If you don't, you don't.
Yeah. It's a little greasy right now. I need to wash it. Not a lot. I've got I don't even know what I use. It's just kind of whatever's there. I condition it every once in a while. Not a lot. I'm still kind of learning how this whole hair thing works.
Coconut oil.
Yeah. I do. I was just blessed. I got really thick hair. I'm fortunate. I need to shout out to the folks watching. wilverforcongress.com is my website where you can learn more, or follow me on Instagram, Pat_Wilver. That's where I put out a ton of content out there. So, and vote for me in the Democratic primary, May 19th. Even if you're not registered as a Democrat, you can pull a Democratic ballot. So go do it.
It's in the description below on YouTube.
Boom.
We got you, boo-boo.
Well, once again, Pat, we say good luck. And let me ask you, if you do win, would you come back on?
Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate it again. And thank you. Like I say, good luck. And like I said, you're aligned with a lot of people on this page. So I wish you a lot of good luck, and I'll talk to you soon, buddy.
Right on.
Good luck.
All right. Thank you guys again for asking Pat all these questions. Great. And getting in the chat. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to shut the poll down. It feels like, do you feel like your voice is heard when big projects are approved in your area? Got a resounding 100%, 2,000 votes for no. So
it's Pooler, people. It's the Pooler residents.
But like I said, I just want to give you a couple shout outs to the mothers out there. Next weekend is Mother's Day weekend. So happy Mother's Day to Mom, to Carol, my mother-in-law, to my beautiful wife who's had both of my children, and all the mothers out there. Happy Mother's Day.
And we love you, Mom.
There you go.
We love you,
and
Mom.
then I briefly want to talk to you guys about the petition real quick. If you are watching and you are in the Port Wentworth area and you're looking to talk about the petition, check it out. The last time I checked, we were at 93 signatures, which is about 4,907 short. So if we could...
It's a problem. Sign the
If we
petition.
could get more than 4,907 by May 21st, that'd be great. Hey, go out there and check out if you want to join our Facebook page, we got one going. Hold on, I'm gonna put it in the chat. Hold on, let me see.
Yeah.
I started a new one just
You
for
have to be
this.
a Port Wentworth person.
I
Only
mean, you
Port
don't have
Wentworth
to
can
be.
sign it, yeah?
Yes, only can sign the petition, but doesn't mean you don't have to if you want to
Push it.
share our content and do all that stuff. Yeah, just be on our page. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? We appreciate it. And
That
like I
person.
said, thank you guys. We got to stop this data center thing. We need 5,000. We need by May 21st. I'm going to be outside in the community park. If you want to ask me questions about it, of the Bryce Hope community, there's going to be people at Publix. We're trying to organize a thing together. So if you want to join the fight, come and join. I really appreciate you guys watching, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.
Till Monday at 9, 8.
Till Monday.